Hello, brothers and sisters. The title of the message today is Being Led by the Hand of the Lord, Chapter 8, from 1974 to year 2018. Just before he graduated from theological college, during the vacation, one of his college juniors arranged a meeting with his older sister who lives in Jincheon, Chungbuk province. He decided to get married with her. They got married and brought their suitcases and briefcases to Noha Island. We asked him, "Why did you hurry up so much?" He answered that in order to become a pastor, I had to get married first. I did not know anything. I felt at a loss. Maybe 1 month passed, he received their letter of appointment. They started newlyweds life, moved to Mokpo and to the small village church there. Among my friends, one of them got married at the age of 19 and got a daughter at the age of 20. Reverend Chung got married at the age of 23 and got a daughter at the age of 24. But I could not get married. Even 10 years passed. I could not even dream of marriage. But so many people around me worried about me and supported me to get married. Then I could get married later. Reverend Chung was so different from me. My friends simply make a decision and quickly move forward. This kind of temperament of himself enabled him to left Noah Island, went up to Seoul, and studied theology. Whatever he did, that made me feel at a loss. Suddenly went up to Seoul following him. The village people might have felt at a loss. When he left this world, he had the feeling of, in advance, he left the last letter of will and donated his dead body to the hospital, medical college, and he made a phone call to people around him before he died. His chronic disease was a high blood pressure. More serious disease was his heart disease. He received the operation of coronary artery. One day he was sitting in front of his computer. He lost his consciousness. They moved him to a hospital. He could not wake up because of his brain hemorrhage. He knew he was going to die in advance. Just like his usual behavior, he knew he would go away, so he left without looking back. Just moved forward, rushed forward. He was at a small country church, but he suddenly went up to Seoul without any attached emotion. Other people tried to stop him, but he moved to a Pentecostal church. Because my problem, he knew our denomination had no more hope. He suddenly changed his path from Holiness Church to Pentecostal church. I was working at Campus Crusade. I was absorbed in Korean Christianization movement. He was suffering so much at an unknown place. At a Pentecostal church, he built a small church, but later he moved to a Presbyterian church. He moved several times from this small church to that small church. Finally, he went fasting for 40 days. He borrowed the second floor of a deacon's house and started a new church, but he must have suffered so much. I heard from his wife he did not have any money. He could not heat the floor during the winter season. His children suffered so much they don't like church at all. Well, his children felt the impression of his father's church was so shabby and worn out by poverty. It was inevitable for his children. In old days, if people look at the poor pastor, church people felt so embarrassed. But at the same time, they thought they're holy people and the children could endure the misery. But in modern times, people are not quite the opposite, are quite the opposite. It is really deplorable, but it is reality. When I listened to his wife's words, I met good brothers. I was able to lead comfortable life in Daegu Church, and when I think about my friend, my heart becomes heavy. Well, weak person like myself, Lord, look to take care of so much, maybe. I feel so sorry about my friend. Just because of me, he was leading a comfortable life in the countryside, but left the country and went up to Seoul and suffered so much. My another friend is Reverend HyunRaiLee's. Is the same way. He was a pastor of a large church in Mokpo City, but because of me, he went up to Seoul, and even other people tried to stop him, suffered so much, just like Reverend Chung. When my friend was still alive, I wanted to help him, but I feel so I could not help him. He was sitting in front of his computer to deliver a lecture at a theological college. He was preparing manuscript with his poor typing skill. He left this world and us without any words. Suppose I knew you're leaving this world in advance, I could have talked with you for days and days. Chapter 8, from 1974 to year 2018. Subtitle number 1, The Transformation in My Life and My Ministry. In fall season, 1974, when I was in Chungju, I met Watchman Nee. A great transformation took place in my life and my ministry. The moment I learned the fact that the Bible can reveal a totally different meaning through revelation according to the person who reads the book, my standing point toward the Bible was totally overturned. I knew the story of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that appeared in the 11th chapter of the book of Genesis so well because I learned them from my Sunday school. The summary is that Abraham received the blessing because of his faith, Isaac received the blessing because of his obedience, and Jacob received the birthright because of his strong and special desire. He was able to become an ancestor of Israel. But Watchman Nee kept saying God calls people according to his own purpose and disciplines according to his own purpose. God disciplined us. He became 100 years old in order to give his son Isaac. Isaac was offered at a sacrificial offering on the Mount Moriah. He enjoyed the limitless blessing as the son and Jacob snatched out his blessing from his older brother, but he received discipline in his lifetime, and became the ancestor of Israel. He had an entirely different viewpoint from other people when he read the Bible. He himself was receiving principle under God's calling. That's why he was able to view the Bible that way. No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind was conceived that God has prepared for those who love him. I have never met such kind of interpreter in my life. That's Watchman Nee. King Nebuchadnezzar and the Pharaoh of Egypt had a dream, but they could not meet a good interpreter. But when they met a good interpreter, the heaven was opened up before their eyes. The dream and vision come from heaven. Therefore, the interpretation is absolutely necessary. In order to get the perfect interpretation, man of God must come to us. If not, the darkness and the confusion will come to us instead. In our life, there is a master who controls our life. The dream and the vision are continuously given from him. But if we cannot interpret them, they disappear like the smoke and we get lost in the darkness. I passed through the various kinds of disciplines. I was born from poor parents who made their living from hand to mouth. As I was not healthy from my childhood, just before I reached to my puberty, I came down with tuberculosis, which was so difficult to cure around that time. My dream of continuing my study was shattered like the autumn leaves fall and become scattered all over. Medicine for tuberculosis was imported from overseas countries, and they were so expensive. I spent so much money treating my disease. My health was just like a cracked jar, barely fixed with a steel wire. But my friend, late Reverend Chung Ho Jung, became God's messenger. He called me so that I could enter into the theological college. It was a dream-like moment for me. All my acquaintances were all surprised. After that, because of the help of the Reverend Hong Mo Kim, I was able to walk the smooth path as a pastor. My heart was full of hope and my friends envied me. When I was concentrating on my ministry one day, the thunder and lightning hit my life. It was a day beyond my imagination. I trusted and respected that head pastor so much, but he deserted me. I fell into a swamp of hopelessness. I had no other hope and way out. I was just like a duck egg fell into the river. How can this duck egg push the side and enter into the reed field, hatched and grow up as a duck? This kind of luck can be gotten with a thin probability of 1/100th, 1,000th, or 1/10,000th. For 20 years, my life was so dismal, there was no clear interpretation about my life. But as I could enter into theological college, I said to myself, for this very day, could I remain on this earth up to now? Though it was a dim interpretation, but one day a thunder and lightning hit my life became dark again. In front of my eyes, I was able to see only the shrewd intrigues of my enemies who was trying to harm me. I had to struggle for 4 years in that denomination, but I was exhausted and came out of denomination. It was a dark night. It was a pitch black night. The world and the religious world. The power was ruling. The truth or justice was just their excuses for their rationalization. Everything looked in a negative way. But then one day, my friend, late Reverend Yoon Suk Lim, introduced me to Campus Crusade. I have never imagined before I was able to work there with a new hope. All these things were happening until I became 37 years old. It was a long history. If I talk more in detail, they would be filled with stories after stories. When I joined in the Campus Crusade, I was working there with a great hope, but the true interpretation was not possible. But then one day, a great interpreter emerged, a man who was able to interpret my life clearer than myself. On the standing point of heaven, beyond my imagination, on the standing point of the heavenly blessing, that very man appeared before my eyes. Why couldn't I meet him earlier? On the standing point of the earth, my life couldn't be interpreted as a blessed life. Before Daniel appeared, a dream of King Nebuchadnezzar that could not be interpreted. Before Joseph came, the dream of Pharaoh could not be interpreted. Nobody else except Joseph. Pharaoh was their king. He conquered and ruled over the country. They can lead their life according to their thoughts pleased, but the will of heaven cannot be interpreted. The will of heaven can be interpreted by the one who is dwelling in heaven. A man absolutely needs an interpreter from heaven. The principle that moves the universe, the principle itself interprets the operation of the universe. The fact that spring, summer, fall, and winter, the universe moves quite in order, which can be interpreted with the principle. Everything is occurred in correlationship. Everything occurs according to the correlationship. It is correct, but for those unlucky people, it doesn't give any help. Man's life cannot be all interpreted by a certain principle. With those earthly knowledges and wisdom, we cannot interpret the dreams of those unlucky people into the blessed one. Buddha got the enlightenment about the principle of correlationship, retributive justice. But if that's the truth, if my present life in this world became so unlucky because of the retribution for the deeds of the former life, what should we do in order to pay back all the karma? You just take it for granted and try to pay back all the debts, and in the next world, your life will be very blessed. The clothes are worn out, so stitch it together. The jar is cracked. Do we have to fix it with steel wire? If we are hungry, do we have to keep on drinking water and die? Eventually die? As people's thoughts are limited, that kind of answer is quite natural for them. My family doctor who declared the termination of my tuberculosis treatment said to me, try to lead your life in a very careful way. The officer who checked my health before I joined the army, he said so quietly with a great worries, I wish he could at least get married. But he could not help me. But one day, a man came from heaven and saved me. And another man came down from heaven and interpreted my life. He came in order to illuminate my life with a blessing, with a merciful mind. He let me see the blessing illuminated with a light. He let me listen to God's voice, which is actually not audible. And about those things that cannot be interpreted on earth, he interpreted very well for me. Our God is not the one who created the universe with laws and wisdom and just turned backwards. He is not the one who finishes his work and disappears where people don't know. And he's not the one who disappears among his creatures and just existing as a principle. The one who created everything walk around those creatures and have a certain relationship. Something he commits to the nature themselves, and he commits to people, but for something he directly work on himself. Hallelujah. He created people for his own need, saved them, called them, disciplined them, and used them for his original purpose and fulfill his purpose. After I met the one who interpreted the Bible through illumination and revelation, my eyes were opened up, ears were opened up, and my mind was moved forward toward God's work. Thank you. Hallelujah. May God bless every one of you. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you.